One of the questions that keeps coming up over and over again is about the idea of purchasing a pre-existing homestead that may have an unfinished house, or maybe has a manufactured home or a trailer house or an old house on it, but something that's already been worked, already been has some other person's improvements done to it, as opposed to buying a raw piece of land like this. This land was used for nothing but ranch land before we touched it, and 2 or 3 comments on YouTube about people asking why I just didn't find something that had already been cleared, already maybe farmable, something like that. If you see the very first video that we shot, talking about the kind of the pursuit of the homestead, I think the video is called "Why We Left the City." You can see that we looked at a couple different pieces of property. Actually, this piece of property was not the piece of property that was registering very high on the radar because of the challenge. But the single biggest differentiating factor, I think, was the price. The house that we were looking at, that was on also 40 acres, it was an unfinished house, and it was weird. And you know, if the price was right, I probably could have made it work. But the idea of taking somebody else's basket case of a house and trying to make it work, which I'm good at doing that. I love that kind of stuff. I've done it with homes multiple times, but the price just was not. You know, that particular house with 40 acres was $100,000 more than this land was, and other than having the house, the unfinished house on it, it had nothing going for it other than the land was flat. But as far as location, it's about the same distance from town as this piece of property is. It's very wide open. There's no seclusion to it, which that was kind of one of the factors also that was a little bit of a turnoff. We like the idea that this piece of property is not very well known. It's somewhat secluded. Probably the biggest factor was the price. You know, we're old enough now where we don't want to have big mortgages ever again. We've had big mortgages. We had, you know, 10, 12 years ago, we had I think it was about a $375,000 mortgage. And we had a giant house payment to go with that. And we don't ever want that again. And so this piece of property, if I take halfway serious, I could pay off in a year or two. That's probably the biggest deciding factor. Above and beyond that, this property has character, and I love the idea of being able to mold and to develop a relationship with this piece of property. I still don't even know where my property lines are. I look forward to the time, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, when I can tell my kids and my grandkids every special little piece on this property that I discovered, and again had some sort of a memory created there. This property, compared to the other piece of property, was flat. That was about it. There was no trees on it. There was deer that would occasionally wander through the property. I couldn't hunt on that other piece of property like I can on this piece of property. The other piece of property also had a dirt road that went to it. But I think, you know, that comment, people have asked me multiple times, why wouldn't I find something that was already somewhat developed? And part of it's the thrill of the chase. Part of it's the, you know, hand picking which trees stay and which trees go, and watching this develop. In the mind's eye, I can see where I want this to go. I can see what I want it to turn into. It's hard to describe at times. My mother-in-law happens to be in town right now. She tomorrow, this is the video I'm going to put out on Friday. She probably won't see this video, and so I'll go ahead and talk about it. But my mother-in-law was probably the most upset person when we moved. When the day that we were driving away, I've never seen my mother-in-law sob, literally sob, as we drove away. And I thought for sure that would deter my wife and cause my wife to reconsider. And thank goodness my lovely wife just jumped in the car and said, let's go. My mother-in-law, we've joked about, we actually brought them up last year and showed them another piece of property up here. We didn't show them this property because at the time this property wasn't available. And my father-in-law said one thing. He said, you need to buy it just so you can hunt on it. And my mother-in-law said, you're crazy. Something to the effect of who would do that, who would live up there. Now my mother-in-law lives in probably a $450,000 home, maybe even a $500,000 home down there in Queen Creek, Arizona. They live in a subdivision where they pay probably $200 a month for homeowners association fees, and all of the things that she loves, I despise. You know, if you've seen our other videos, you can see that I have cars in my driveway that are just about sitting on blocks, and the idea that somebody would find me for living my life that way, just it seems un-American at a minimum. But I'm going to bring her up here tomorrow, and I'm going to just bounce some things off her. And I asked her if she'd be on our video, and she said to me, she said, you don't want me on your video. And I said, why? And she said, because I'm going to say things that you probably don't want to hear. And I said, well, you know, that's part of the deal, and we fully understand that. But anyway, we're going to get that well drilled. We're going to get the camper removed up there and get the fifth wheel put up where the camper is. And also next week, there's going to be a bulldozer coming, or 2 weeks. And the dozer's going to cut this road in a lot better, and also get our house pad hopefully flattened out, and get the location for our shop hopefully flattened out also. A lot of good stuff happening. It's naturally not happening as fast as I want it to. But let me also say this about the idea of buying somebody else's homestead. We looked at Kentucky, Arkansas, places like that, and it just didn't feel right for us. I have a connection to this part of the country. I feel like this place was where we were supposed to be. I wasn't looking for the cheapest piece of property to come and settle in. There's no real estate in the little town that we live in. There's virtually no homes available. We initially were going to buy a home in town while we built this home up here, but there's nothing down there. And it's causing us just to try and make preparations to start building our place up here. But to me, there's greater factors than just finding the absolute cheapest place on the planet, because I probably could have found a $40,000, 200-acre spread in somewhere in the backwoods of Arkansas. And nothing against anybody that's living in the backwoods of Arkansas, but that just didn't feel right for us. We recognize the need to live in a community where we feel we have a common thread, maybe a common bond, and this community, we have that, and we've developed that, and we've developed relationships here. Not that that wouldn't have happened somewhere else, but this corner of the world is a special place for me, because this is where my ancestors carved out a living. And part of buying a raw piece of land and doing it myself is maybe walking in the shoes that they walked in. I'm not going to pretend to even remotely understand the sacrifices that the people that came before me offered, but I do like the idea of doing the same types of things on the same types of soil and succeeding. I know that we'll succeed. It might take some time. So we chose raw land over the existing house. The other property. If you haven't seen that first video, you might watch that first video. The video's not the best, but you'll get the point. Stay tuned for that next video. That next one's going to be probably a fun one. I hope my mother-in-law doesn't come down on me like a ton of bricks. Sometimes my wife comes across in these videos as being victim of circumstance, but I want everybody to know that she's just as much a part of this as I am, and I think you'll see that as we continue to make preparations to build our house. What else is coming up? Anyway, some good stuff. I really feel like we're kind of in limbo right now because I'm trying to get those cars out of my driveway and trying to get those projects completely out of my life so I can focus 100% on the property up here. But thank you guys for all the positive comments and the positive feedback.